Welcome to another edition of Inside Carolina Scouting the Room. It's the second in a series based off of Jason Staples, who you see beside me, his work in scouting players on the roster. It's been a little difficult this year, but as always, shout out to Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com as our sponsors. And Jason, let's get right into it. The linebacker room saw a lot leave and a lot has come in, and there's a couple or two or three young guys with very little tape. Just a general overview before we get into specifics and specific players. Of all the roster turnover on the team, there's been a ton. Obviously, we've seen that throughout the course of since December the 11th. It seems to me, just at first glance, the linebacker room is the biggest casualty and addition spot on the team. Am I right or wrong based on what you've been looking through?
I mean, by percentage, I don't think there's any argument that you could make for anything else. I mean, I guess defensive line is similar. You know, neither. I mean, this is crazy. So I keep a depth chart, projected depth chart on in Google Sheets for myself that I keep updated over time. And the crazy thing is every player in the front seven, not just the front six, and they're going to be a front six team. But if they came out in a 4-3 or a 5-2 or a 3-4 or whatever, every player on the front that would start right now is a transfer. Every single one. That's crazy. And here's the other thing that's crazy is basically every player that would be a backup, except for maybe Tyler Thompson or Jabron Harvey, if one of those guys managed to win a second string job right now at one of the edges. Every player right now that I have projected as a backup, also a transfer. That's both linebacker and defensive line. The entire defensive front is 100% new going into next year. Like I said, unless, and these are reasonably talented players in Tyler Thompson and Jabron Harvey, unless one of those guys wins a two deep spot, every other player 100% is gonna be a transfer.
Welcome to the new world order of college football. It is
or
what
I
it
should say a
is.
transfer or a freshman, let's say.
Yes.
Anyway.
So we're going to try to go through it. You know, if you watched the show last week, 2 weeks ago, we did defensive backs and we sort of did the alpha, the breakout player, all that kind of stuff. We're still going to try to get that done here, but it's going to be interesting. But let's look at first. So for folks that aren't familiar, if you're a member of Tar Pit Premium Message Board, Jason does these scouting reports, in-depth scouting reports every year. There's an index thread. They're posted on the message board, and they're usually pinned, and there's a lot of lively discussion. But you have to have tape on people to do these scouting reports. And in this room's case, we've got 6 linebackers on the roster. There are 3 that have tape. And if you saw the intro to the show, you saw the pictures of them. But Evan Bennett, no tape. Jonathan Aguamadu, no tape. Tamir Hickman Collins, no tape. Jason, those 3, we'll kind of group them in a little bit. Pull one out of the hat and tell me which of those 3 are going to be names that North Carolina fans need to know going into this season.
Give me Evan Bennett of the 3.
Maybe Evan Bennett. Okay.
Yep.
And he's
the young guy. If we're going to go with the young buck to watch, so we'll just make that first. Young buck to watch is Evan Bennett, because the physical tools that he brings to the table as a redshirt freshman are pretty good, right? You're looking at it. There are not very many linebackers who can run sub 11 seconds in the 100 meters, right? And he did that in high school. He ran 100 and 200 in high school. So, and the thing is, with the way that Belichick likes to call a defense, the thing is, he really likes guys that he can move around. So he likes your Swiss Army knife types, and he also really likes somebody who has just an overwhelming trait that he can take advantage of. Right? And the thing about Evan Bennett is he's 6'2", 230, and ran 11 seconds in the 100 meters. I think his official PR when I checked it online was like 10.97. And I think on his Twitter he's got a personal best listed of like 10.89 or something like that, or 10.87, something like that. I'll go with what the official stuff has. Either way, you're talking about just under 11 seconds. That's fast. I mean, generally speaking, that's your, pretty good, fast enough to be a breakaway threat running back at this level. And Bennett has that level of speed. He's 230 and has that kind of speed. Now, is he going to be flexible enough to do what he needs to do? Is he going to trigger quickly enough? Some of the things that, the thing about linebacker is, as far as the defense goes, it may well be the least athletically dependent in terms of straight speed and other aspects of all the positions on defense. At corner, if there's a certain point, if you can't run, you can't play corner. Right? At safety, there's a point where like you have to be faster than this to play safety at this level. And there's benefits up to a point of diminishing returns, and that point's pretty high in those cases. Right? Faster is better. With linebacker, Ray Lewis played how many years as one of the best linebackers in the NFL, where I don't think he could have broke 5'2".
Yeah. But he brought a ton of bricks when he got there.
Well, and it wasn't just about bringing a ton of bricks. It was that his mind worked so fast, and he was so good at triggering downhill into the right spot with the right amount of force, and he responded so quickly to what he saw, and he read his keys so quickly that he was already 2 steps ahead of a typical linebacker before the other linebacker had already started moving. So much about linebacker is not about just the physical traits. The great linebackers, the truly elite of the elites, are the guys that combine that processing speed. It's like a quarterback in that sense, who combine that processing speed with the athleticism to be able to do that damage. And then you get your Derek Brookses and some of those guys who are, special. And, Ray Lewis, when he came into the league, he was probably a 4'7" guy. Special to have the processing ability at that level and the size and speed to be able to work with it. So we'll see a little bit on Bennett. I think there were some good signs in the spring with him. He's a guy I'd circle as a young buck to watch, though, for that reason, because the traits physically are there. But like I said, this is the one position where those kinds of physical traits are the least important of all the positions on defense. Give me a linebacker who is warp speed above the shoulders over the guy that runs sub 11 every time when it comes to playing linebacker, if all other things are equal. Because there's an old saying in the NFL, 4-4 running the wrong direction isn't fast. Right? So
100%. We've seen those over the years. Yeah, quite often. So you've got Bennett.
Several of them under Tommy Thigpen's coaching at linebacker.
It's gonna, yeah. It doesn't matter how fast you are if you do not know where you're going. But let's sort of look at this a little bit. And we're talking with Jason Staples here on the Linebacker Room. I do not want to get tickled. I have a long evening of shows to do, so we're going to keep it simple. We're talking with Jason on the Linebacker Room. Evan Bennett, young buck to watch. Agumadu, Hickman, Collins. Those are also transfers, as Jason mentioned, but let's get into the meat of the room. And this is the 3 guys that you saw on the screen here. If you're watching on the YouTube version, you got Simpson, you got Bayer, and you got Kamori House. And Jason, let's go for the alpha of the room. I think Simpson. I know. Oh, you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Run with it. Go with the alpha of the room. You've got
Did you think I was going to go with
Simpson.
House?
I thought you were going to go with House.
No, it's Simpson. At least in my view, of these guys, Simpson's much more of a finished product, and I think he's got experience being a leader of a room, or at least one of the leaders of a room. He's a guy who's played in the college football playoff. He's a good bit ahead, maturity wise, of where House is, and I mean that's the other thing is that I think, without saying too much here, I think House, when he showed up in Chapel Hill, had to kind of uh, he had to learn how much he needed to mature under this coaching staff and with this new roster and all of that to be what he wants to be. I mean, I think House walked in the door expecting to be the alpha and acting like an alpha, but he ain't an alpha yet. And that's earned. And I think of this group, Simpson's probably the guy that I would guess on that. And I would go with one of the two older guys over House as that if I'm really choosing alpha. Those are guys that have played a lot more snaps. And, linebacker's a leadership position and experience matters a lot. And, you look at these guys, I've got the number of snaps here. You mentioned the other three have played 0 snaps. But Bayer has 617 career snaps, House 317, Andrew Simpson 1477. Okay. He's got some holes in his game that I would like to see patched up, but they're things that I think he can get better at under this coaching staff. And I think he's going to be the guy that of the three of them comes off the field the least. So to me, that's your alpha.
Totally get it. I mean, 1,477 snaps. That's about 8 games under the old staff at North Carolina. I, I, uh, I jest, but not terribly much. But yeah, to your point, there's one thing to act like the alpha. There's another to be the alpha. So I'll take your vote on Simpson being that guy. Of course, the transfer from Boise State. Let's go breakout player on this team here, on this 6 we have. We're 3 really.
For me, that's
If,
House.
yeah, I agree with that.
House makes
If you're
sense
going to
as the
talk it, you got
breakout
to
guy.
show. Yeah,
That's right. And I mean, he's got the tools to become of these guys. I think because of the speed that he has and just the fluidity at the position, he has the highest ceiling of these guys. He's the guy that could become the best of them. He's not the best of the 3 yet. He isn't. He's not that guy. He could become that guy as early as, say, second half of this season. But it's going to take him actually getting there. But the tools are there for him to become, I think, a plus level linebacker in this league, and a guy that against teams that really want to spread you out and throw the football and all that, he's going to be a bit of a problem. He's got some holes in his game, and he's got some inexperience, and he's late to trigger on at times, and miss some tackles that he shouldn't miss as he gets a little older. Though he's missed fewer tackles than Simpson. Simpson, the one hole in his game is he misses a lot of tackles. He's in the right spot a lot, and he's really good. I mean, he's much better than I thought he would be when I first turned on the tape. I expected him to be, based on his size, to be kind of a thumper. He's a mostly a pass and against the pass type backer, despite his size. I'd actually trim him down a little bit just to let him be that guy to in this defense. But I think House has the chance to be really, really good. He's just got a long way to go to get there.
yeah, and of course, the good thing about House, and I think we talked about this before with the Washington transfers, is they've been in this defense, and I think that helps going forward. It certainly gives them a little bit ahead of the game going into fall camp, and of course having that spring and their previous experience. Let's go to we'll go time to prove it, and I don't know if this really applies on any of these. I'm not sure we're there yet with any of them, but it's one of the topics we chose. It's one of the topics we're going to roll with, Jason. Time to prove it here. You probably can go on these 3, Bayer, House, or Simpson, or you can pull from the other set of 3. But it's your choice here.
Yeah, I mean, just for the sake of not going with the same guy, because I mean, I could say, to Simpson, prove it that you can actually be a consistent tackler. But beyond that, uh, I would say Hickman Collins is kind of the prove it guy for me. From what I understood of where he stood at Florida State after the spring, he needed to move on just because he wasn't going to have a future there. And North Carolina under Bill Belichick, that's the kind of program that North Carolina expects to be a peer of or better than. And for him to be the kind of player that he wants to be, he's got some room to grow to get there under this staff. And the question is, can the coaching change? Sometimes the coaching and system change really make a difference. But I think they're bringing him in, expecting him to be at least a good special teams contributor. But he's sort of slated. You'd expect him to probably be a two deep guy and to get some reps. But he's got to prove it. He's got to prove he's ready to go. I think the other, I think Agamadu, or however you say his name, I think he comes in, I think, with fewer question marks in terms of being able to find his way on the field. Physically, a little bit more imposing player. So we'll see. I would say that the prove it guy is Hickman Collins.
Yeah, it's going. A couple of those guys certainly look the part. They're on the bus and they look good getting off the bus. They need to show it
We
on the
should add a
field.
first guy off the bus of the
Yeah,
unit,
it should be. I
right?
mean,
We should add that as a category.
it reminds me, and this is just a baseball aside. I was in Chapel Hill, of course, covering the baseball team, and I was watching Nebraska get off their bus and go into Boshammer Stadium, and I was like, these dudes won the Big Ten championship. They don't. They look like a high school team, and that's no disrespect for them. They were not the guys you want to see get off the bus. And then you go see a team like Tennessee, and them boys look like they need to be just playing football. And so big difference there. So getting off the bus and looking good. Maybe we'll add that.
Yeah,
For
we're
the
gonna add
defensive
that,
line.
and for that is Agamadu out of this
Yes.
group. That boy,
Okay.
you send him off first and let him talk his trash coming off the bus. That
Yes.
he looks the part, and if he plays anywhere like he looks, then they're gonna have a pretty good Tarzan on their hands.
Yeah. So he's the old sheesh. We're in trouble guy. But anyway, let's
Hmm.
move along. We haven't talked about Bayer. Where would you put Bayer in here? Obviously, 617 snaps. We've got time to prove it. You talked about that. Young buck to watch, breakout player. Did we do breakout? Yeah, we
We
did
did,
breakout. That was
yeah.
House and the Alpha. We don't have the questions from the live chat, but just where do you slate Bayer in here? Obviously, he's moved around. He was somewhere for 3 months in the spring, and now he's in Chapel Hill, and he's another one of these guys. I mean, I'm not a Nebraska football fan, but he looks nice there,
Yeah.
and very well filled out. But Bayer's upside or issues or where you see him slated here.
So to me, Bayer is Mr. Consistency. So if we want to add that as a category just for this one, or if we want to add it for the future, Bayer is Mr. Consistency. He's the guy that I think of these three linebackers, he's the one guy that's really proven he can be a weapon and a force in run defense. I mean, I think Simpson graded out well in run defense from Pro Football Focus, but I think he was not as he's not as much of a thumper. He just isn't. When Bayer arrives, he arrives angry. He's one of those guys. I mean, I don't know that I think we didn't manage to get that video embedded, but there's a play. If anybody watching this wants to go and take a look at it, you can look it up. There's a play where Indiana ran a shallow cross against Nebraska I want to say toward the middle of the first quarter of that game. And first of all, it was a really impressive play because it was a shallow cross where they released two linemen upfield and the shallow's coming right down the line of scrimmage. So it serves as a middle screen. And the linemen are trying to get on those backers. And Bayer recognized it so fast that he got downhill and underneath those backers or underneath those offensive linemen before they could touch him. And he laid the lumber to that Indiana receiver. I'm talking about, the kind of hit that you would see from the old, Miami, Florida State games with Marvin Jones and Derek Brooks and DJ Williams and Jonathan Vilma and, Ray Lewis, those kinds of hits where those guys, they dip and lift you up out of your shoes and put you on your back. It was one of those, and did it without targeting too. He's a physical player, and I think if there's a guy that's going to bring the physical edge, and that again could be another category of its own. Who's the guy who sets the physical tone for this group? To me, that's Bayor. And that's one of the reasons why I think you're going to see these three guys, the three main with experience. I think you're going to see all three of those guys rotate snaps. You're going to see those three guys, not all three of those guys are going to play. And in run heavy situations, in a lot of neutral situations, you're going to see Bayor out there, and maybe not House, sometimes not Simpson. And then they're going to go three backers sometimes, and they're going to have those three out there. They're going to go other times where it's a long yardage situation, and Bayor's going to come off the field, and the other two are going to be on the field. I think certain opponents, they're going to have Bayor on the field more because that opponent wants to just run the rock between the tackles. And he's the guy that they're going to want to have out there. He's 6'2", 230. He's a pretty linear player, but like I said, he's going to come downhill and he's going to take on that lead blocker, and he's going to blow that guy up. He's going to be fit. If he's going to make a mistake, he's going to make the mistake being physical. And so that's really where his role is. And in that respect, I think he brings an important added element to this defense, which Carolina's been pretty soft, in terms of its reputation defensively for a long time. And House is not real big. He's not a big time hitter. And Simpson, he'll hit you once in a while, but he's also not really a thumper. Bayor is the guy that kind of you lean on to set the tone in that respect.
That is Bayor from the spring in Nebraska and now in North Carolina Tar Heels. So we've sort of gone through the room here.
He was in Missouri for the spring. He was at Nebraska for a couple years.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
All over the place. Nebraska, Missouri, and now North Carolina. He had a cup of coffee and a few snacks in Missouri. Where the room ranks. We did this with the defensive backs, and I think we both thought the defensive back room was up the food chain for North Carolina. But real quick here to close this one out, where does this room rank? Like we talked about from the outset, they're all brand new except for Evan Bennett. It's an interesting question, and that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I think this is a room where it's hard. This is probably the hardest room to really realistically rank because you just don't know how these pieces are going to fit together. You got two guys who are coming in after the spring at a position where, knowing the defense is at a premium. You've got, a couple guys. Bayor transferred from Missouri, presumably because he wasn't going to win a job there. Right? So, and, Simpson transferred from Boise because he was a rotational guy there. It was, he was probably going to start. He started last year, but, he only played 500 snaps last year, 506 snaps as opposed to 732 the year before, because they used him more situationally. He was much more of it's more of a passing situation. Let's put him on the field. There were a couple other backers out there that were really pushing. So, these are good players, but are they top level? This is a guy that would go to Clemson and start. No, they're not that. House is a guy that, like I said, he's got the highest ceiling, and he is the kind of guy that maybe next year you look at and you say, would that guy start at Clemson? Maybe he could develop into that. He isn't that yet, but I think this is pretty. If I'm going to just kind of hedge my bets, I think this is a pretty average, middle of the pack ACC room with a little bit of upside. Now, again, the experience depth is minimal, and you're patchworking it a little bit. So the downside is that it could be below average. I think with the coaching that they're going to be getting and some of the upside in the room, I think some of those guys, again, Evan Bennett and Agamadu, we don't know what they're going to become. Hickman Collins, I think there's enough talent in the room that they're probably going to be average or better. I think the upside probably wins out here, but I don't see this as, say, a top 5 room in the ACC. I think this is in that average quartile, somewhere in the bottom part of quartile 2 or top part of quartile 3 for the conference.
North Carolina linebacker room, thin on experience, at least for North Carolina. 3 guys with some, 3 guys without any. That's Jason Staples. I'm Tommy Ashley. We'll be back to talk edge next time you see us. And then defensive line, interior defensive line. Got a long ways to go as we work through North Carolina's virtually new roster. There'll be more familiar faces once we get to the offensive side, and there's some on the edge as well. But Jason, I appreciate you taking time to do. Look, folks, if you're not a member of the Tar Pit Premium message board, you got to be on there because you get these scouting reports, and it's just as in depth as you can get about North Carolina, especially with all the new names. It's worth checking out. And not only if you're a Tar Pit Premium message board, you get that 10% off at Johnny T-shirt. I don't talk about them enough. Johnny T-shirt and JohnnyT-shirt.com, sponsors of the show. You get Jason Staples scouting reports or 10% off your order. I'm not sure which is the best. It just depends on what mood you're in if you want to spend money. Johnny T-shirts got you covered there. Jason Staples got you covered on Tar Pit Premium message board. Jason's always fun.
I'll take money too, though.
Yeah, we'll take money. You tried to take my money, but that's a story from another day.
Hey, we're square now.
We're square. See ya. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned for many more of these as we go.